Hey, what's up, everybody? This is an open discussion with C3 Films. My name is Chris, and this is.
Cheryl.
And today we're going to be talking about the movie The Northman. So we are going to be going into spoiler territory for the film. So you haven't seen it, I believe it's on Amazon Prime, included with Prime. So you can go and watch it on there, and then come back and see what we have to say about it. But without further ado, let's just go ahead and just jump right into this. We already know right off the bat, like we'll get right into that. The fact that Cheryl, this is not a movie for Cheryl, and I didn't pick it because I was thinking that it would or it wouldn't be. I picked it only because I knew that it was a movie that had come out this year that had garnered some acclaim, and I wanted us to be able to try to see as many new movies of 2022 that were in, like, I guess the American consciousness, as possible, so that we could, like, maybe have an opinion on them and then talk about, like, what our favorite films were from 2022 by the end of the year, which we're approaching at the time of this recording. So the only thing that I know about The Northman, was that it had a very similar plot line to an anime that I had watched in the past called Vinland Saga, and which is also about kind of like the whole Viking lore and things like that. And it's a similar story about revenge. So when I saw the trailer for The Northman, I was just like, okay, it's just live action Vinland Saga. But you know what? I actually kind of want to watch live action Vinland Saga. So, and it came out in theaters, but we weren't going to the movies, so that's why we didn't see it right away. And I saw it on Prime, I was like, okay, this movie is now on Prime. Let's see what it's like. I had forgotten that the director of The Northman is the same director who did The Witch, um, which is a horror film, and a horror film that Cheryl would not be able to watch. And I've forgotten that more than likely those horror movie tropes would have worked its way into the Northman in some kind of way, which is exactly what happened. So I know that you thought that it was a little scary, Cheryl, but, like, was it so scary that you just couldn't watch scenes, or were you confused because there's a lot of strange things that happen in the movie?
I was actually I wasn't confused. I was
Okay.
actually more not so much bothered by the horror elements of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was just so bored that I wasn't like captivated enough to pick up on the parts that would otherwise, like, if I was really interested in watching it, would probably, get to me.
Mm-hmm.
um Not saying that I wasn't, paying attention, but I was just kind of like, what do you say? Because you know how you're like, I messaged Chris and I was like, why did you pick this? Because I was like, this is not the kind of movie for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so Chris hadn't watched it yet, and he's like, there must be a lot of tracking, long static shots. And I'm like, yeah. There's like 5 minutes gone by, and there's been no dialogue or anything. And, like, not that there's anything wrong with that. And I'm not going to say at all that this was a bad movie, because I don't think it was a bad movie. I just don't think that I'm the correct audience for it, if that makes sense.
No, that makes sense. I absolutely. It's kind of like similar when we had our arrival discussion, which, if you want to watch, you can check out on our YouTube channel. But I don't think I was expecting to enjoy the movie as much as I ended up enjoying it, because I heard what you said about it, and so I went into the movie just kind of like, okay, well, it means that it's probably slow. I can deal with slow. It's fine, but let's just see what happens. But what I was, like, kind of taken aback by was the level of detail in the visual storytelling that takes place in this movie. It's been a while since we had watched it, but, like, when I remember, like, one of the things that stuck out to me was how, when the king gets there, that's played by Ethan Hawke's character, when the king gets there and the son is happy to see him and goes to go hug him and everything else like that, it's framed as if this is our hero, this is our hero's kingdom, these are, like, our Starks, right? These are the people that we're going to be rooting for. And it's treated as a very good moment. You see that he loves his son and stuff like that. And then the last shot that they show before the king like walks into, I guess, the palace area, is that he has a bunch of slaves, female slaves that have chains around their necks that he's like marching off to the side, and it's like only like a couple of seconds, and then it cuts away, and then there's another scene where the king sits down, and he has like I want to say it's a necklace, and he says that when I found this necklace, it was around the neck of another prince, but now it belongs to this prince, and he gives it to his son, and the implication is that he killed a prince and stole the necklace to give to his son. So like the story is already giving you hints that this guy is not so good. And that's important because it's going to come back later on in the story, and it becomes one of the prevailing themes about this movie is that not everyone is all good. And the things that you remember about a person, your experience of that person, isn't necessarily the experience that everybody else had with that person. So now, how far are you going to go to get your revenge towards that person, whether that be this kid that becomes a man going after his uncle, or that even being Nicole Kidman's character, the wife and the uncle going after the king. So those elements run deep throughout this entire movie, and that is like one of the things, like things like that are what kind of like captivated me and made me want to keep watching.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in a sense it kind of reminded me a little bit of like Game of Thrones. Not just like the whole Stark thing, but maybe more like House of Dragon, because in this sense there aren't really there's like a main character, but even the main character has faults, like he kills people and stuff like that, and he's very he has like tunnel vision because he just has this life goal, like growing up to avenge his
He just repeats it over and
yeah,
over
and he
again.
repeats it, kind of like Arya, like when she was naming all the people all the time of who she
On
wanted
her
to
list.
kill.
Yeah.
So, in that sense, like I thought that was kind of an interesting dynamic because when he grows up, his and he finds his mom, and his mom like gives him the reality of like your father really sucked and your uncle is like a way better person, and like I'm happy now, like why can't you see that? And he was like rejecting it, but like how could he not reject it, because that's what he was bred and born, and how he lived his entire life. So it's kind of hard to turn your back on a way of thinking your entire life.
Right.
But I thought that it was interesting because you could even see how his uncle was somewhat kind to his slaves, even though like slavery still sucks. But if that's like a thing, at least they seem to have somewhat of a life, like not being mistreated. But what I do have to say that caught my eye about the movie is the action sequences, the fighting scenes where our main character would. There was just one part where they attack. He's part of a group that attacks his town, and
Mm-hmm.
they're very long
They're
tracking
very
shots,
long, striking shots. Yo.
but they're not establishing, so they're action. And I'm always impressed when there's a lot of action and a lot of things going on in one long take, because I know those are very hard to do and it takes a lot of coordination. And it's also it's not easy to make those look good, because one of the things that like all the Marvel films and stuff like that, they're cutting a lot, they're doing a lot of quick cuts and stuff, or even like in the Gray Man, there's so many cuts in
Yeah.
all of the fighting scenes, because that's their way of making like two people fight look good. But when you have something like this, even if it's just like a conversation and people are just shuffling around and doing things, it doesn't even have to be combat. But especially when it's combat and you have a long shot like that, and interesting and it doesn't look bad, that's impressive. That's art right there. And that's one of the biggest things that I appreciated about this movie.
Yeah, and one of the other things, like going to that scene that you're talking about, is out. It's also outdoors, right? And so that's the whole thing about like doing these long like tracking shots is that they take a lot of time to set up, and when you're outdoors, you're at the mercy of the sun. So getting like a consistent lighting that works in an outdoor setting where you're moving is a challenge. And I don't know if they just tried to use natural lighting for the entire scene. I feel like they wouldn't have for something like this, and with as much as they're moving. But it's really cool and amazing because also the way that scene starts is that these men are sneaking up on this encampment, and someone throws a spear from the top of the tower, and the character, I think it's our main character, catches the spear and chucks it back. And it all looks so seamless. And I was like, okay, is that a CG spear or was that practical? Did this dude literally catch like some wooden spear and throw it back? But when movies make you ask questions like, how did they do that? That's a fun thing to go through. And then it moves with them, and then they scale up a wall and over the wall, and then into the actual encampment where they start fighting. And so that's just one scene, but there's a lot of scenes like that where they kind of just let the action play out, and it feels very, it doesn't only feel artistic, but it feels like more visceral in those moments, like, oh, this is actually happening, because there are no cuts, or there's very few cuts, and we're just seeing it as it transpires. The final sequence I feel like is very similar. I feel like the final fight of the movie is all like, for the most part, one tracking shot against a freaking volcano. It is, and these men are silhouetted against it, and they're like attacking each other and trying to kill each other. And it's like, wow. Then if there's anything else I could talk about, is just how beautiful this film can look at certain moments. The next thing I want to get to is the fact that there's a lot of sequences in this movie that feel very feel very surreal, where you're kind of asking, is there a supernatural element to this? Is this all in his head? Is this stuff that's actually happening? But when it gets to those kind of surreal moments, those also are like filmed in a very beautiful way, like good lighting and like crazy, like I was saying, surreal feeling.
I'm 99.9% sure that that final scene at the volcano was shot at a volcano.
It was a real volcano. They
No,
actually went to a volcano.
no, but really, like when I first watched that, I had to rewind it because I was like, wait, so first they're like, I'll meet you at the volcano. All right, yeah, that's where we're gonna have our showdown, and then they
The
go to
gates
the
of hell.
volcano. Yeah, and then like they show up and then they start fighting, but they're like both suddenly naked, and I'm like, why are they naked? I guess it's hot. They're by a volcano. But I kind of would have liked to see like them take it off instead of them showing up naked.
I'm pretty sure our lead character showed up with clothes, because then he buries or pays respects to his mother and his I guess his half brother. And then I
I
think
mean, he
maybe then he
does.
strips down.
I mean,
Afterwards.
he goes there with clothes on, and then he starts walking, and then they start fighting, but they're just both there, and they start fighting, and they're both already naked, and I'm like, wait,
Oh,
when
you didn't
did
want.
this
Oh,
happen?
you're upset because you didn't see the process of them removing the clothing. Next level critiquing right there, ladies and gentlemen. Only here at C3 Films.
I mean, if you're gonna be naked, like tease us a little bit. Come
Oh my
on.
god. Oh man. But yes, and that fight was great. I think that the ending of the film, like I felt like it worked. Like there wasn't a feeling of kind of, oh, I kind of wish this went differently. When I'm watching this movie, I was like, this guy needs to die. Like he needs to die by the end of this movie. We already said spoilers, so sorry everybody. But I was
Wait, did
like,
we?
yeah. But yeah, so like seeing that conclusion for this character, and the fact that they both like killed each other at the same time, I thought that that was amazing. I was like, okay, this is perfect. And then they show him dying, and then he is at the gates to Valhalla. You know, these characters, these people, they want to die in battle, and they both got the opportunity to die in battle. He got his vengeance, and you could say that his uncle also got vengeance for his family. So the loop is closed, um, and that's cool. So I like that. So as from a story perspective, that's the end. And so when the credits rolled, I was like, I feel great. This is a cool movie.
Yeah. I mean, I was quite pleased with, the fact that essentially everybody dies.
Yeah, I was like, Cheryl should love this. Basically, the entire cast is dead now, even the children.
The ending was great. Yeah, they even killed the mom, which I thought was, I mean,
She's
it
the
all
villain of
makes
the
sense
piece.
to
Let's be
me.
real. She's the villain of the movie. Nicole Kidman is the villain.
I mean, the fact that our main character wanted revenge, you know that he's gonna kill not everybody, but he's gonna kill the uncle, and because of the fact that his mom loves the uncle, and then has a son, and the boy's not gonna understand, like, it's like the circle of vengeance, basically.
Yeah.
So if the boys survive, if any of them survive, the movie can't really end because there would be like a sequel to it,
Yeah.
and there doesn't really need to be a sequel to this kind of movie. So it makes sense why everybody would end up dying, but I do like the way it went down, especially in that last scene when the main character and the uncle were fighting, because of how they basically essentially died at the exact same time in like one same movement. So I thought that was just a really cool way. So it's not even like somebody won. It's like everybody lost.
Yep. And you could say that that's like the message. If there was a message of this movie, you could say that one of the messages could be that the cycle of vengeance, everyone loses, nobody wins, and at least in this instance, that cycle was closed. But at the end, we all lose if we pursue vengeance, and I think that that's a really cool message that you can absolutely get just from watching the movie without having the movie like beat that message over the head with you.
And it's interesting too because they added another element of the main character falling in love with someone and then having kids. And the reason why he had to go back is because, like, his reasoning was, like, if I don't go and do this and kill my uncle, then our children will never be safe. And that cycle will continue going. So he had to go and do it. But I thought that was another interesting piece because it just goes to show how far that circle of vengeance can go because it affects everyone. Like, you can keep going and going and going until you end the circle.
Yeah, it can affect your unborn children because he literally killed this man's kid, and that man is not gonna let this ride. He's going to come after him, and it's almost sad in a way because it's like, hey, if he had met, and I forget Anya Taylor-Joy's character name, but if he had met her at a different point in time under different circumstances, or even before he actually found his mother, he could have had a happy life, and his mom and his uncle could have had a happy life because no one would have found each other, and he would have given up his vengeance. Because that's the other thing, is that the idea of having a family softened him, and it made him almost want to give up his vengeance because love is, like, I guess, that one thing that can dull the blade of vengeance. But he had to see it through, like you said, for not for his own gratification anymore, but now for protection. And so it's like that's another really cool idea that's neat to see play out throughout the film.
So the moral of the story is family is weakness.
Yes, no family, none. No, the moral of the story is what I forget how they called it in the Harley Quinn show, but you have to like clip the tree or something like that, which basically means that you kill all branches of the family. So make sure that no one can come after you. So if you're going to like kill someone's father, you have to make sure you kill that kid because otherwise that kid's gonna grow up and your entire family's gonna be dead. So you you clip the branches.
You're gonna have this whole John Wick thing going on too.
Yes, right. So okay, and thank you for that, Cab. So you had to see the movie, but most of the effects were done practically, and everything was shot in Ireland. So yeah, so that goes back to what we were saying earlier with some of the like the throwing of the spear and them catching it and throwing it back. If that was done practically, it explains why it looks so good. It's amazing, and like there's so much technical prowess in this movie, and there's also so much mastery of storytelling, both visual, implied, throughout the film that I can honestly say that I really enjoyed this movie overall. There are certain things that like for me I found a little strange, like um, but oh, you know what? It had a feeling to me, almost kind of like remember like I was about to say Remember the Titans, Clash of the Titans. Um, with Perseus going
Basketball.
right, it's football actually.
Oh, football. I was close. It was a
Yes,
sport.
yeah, sports. You said sports. Good job. But like in Clash of the Titans with Perseus and how Perseus was going and fighting certain beings in order to get like certain powers or get like things that he needed in order to like succeed. And I had feelings like that. He gets the sword that can only be opened at night, which I thought was super cool. That felt very anime to me. But I was like, yo, you have a sword that hungers for blood, the blood of men, but you can only unsheath it at night. Yo, this is kind of dope. And then he has this whole sequence when he has to get the sword in the first place, and he fights basically a warrior zombie that can't step in the moonlight. And I'm like, yo, all of this lore and all of this like stuff, I'm with it. Like this is so freaking cool. And then when he beats the thing, it's almost like he had that battle in his mind because then the body disappears and he looks back at the seat and it's still sitting there holding the sword, but this time when he goes to grab the sword, he can just pull it away. So there's things like that that mess with like perspective and like what you can what you're seeing at the moment and asking like did this really happen and stuff like that. So it just makes it so that for me in those moments I was having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, I kind of actually forgot about that stuff because I feel like it didn't happen quite often enough, or maybe it's just because it's been a while since we actually watched the movies, or maybe it's because I was bored. But whatever the reason, I can't really remember, or I'd forgotten about those elements of the movie. And I'm not sure how I feel about it or what it did for me, or if I even felt like it was a necessary thing. But I suppose if it has to do with like Viking lore, then it would be
It's about the
interesting.
mythology. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's just because, this subject of Vikings, it's like far from anything I ever like follow or watch. So I think I'm just not educated. It's like having someone that doesn't watch or has ever seen Star Wars and be like, "Yeah, you should watch Boba Fett." They'd be like,
Right.
"What is this? Am I supposed to
No.
get this?"
No, that makes a lot of sense. And like I've been playing more games that have been kind of based in Norse mythology. Like one of the games that I had played in the last couple of years was Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, which highly recommend. It's a short game, but that kind of delves into the whole lore about like Odin and Fenrir and the the gods and hell and all this other stuff, Valhalla, and same thing, and then similar, like not as heavy in Vinland Saga, but still there. I'm gonna be starting to play God of War soon, and that I know that there's a lot of those elements in that. So like I was kind of primed to watch and enjoy this kind of like material. And so I think that's partially why I was kind of like even more with it because I was recognizing things that I had learned from other media that is now like being repeated in this movie because obviously it's a part of the whole mythology of it. And so that made me really get pulled in because I'm like, oh yeah, that's the thing that I know because of this other thing and whatnot, and oh that's kind of cool because of that. So yeah, at the end and so at the end of the day, like it was really fun for me to go through this film. But I can admit that like I was looking at the like other ratings for this film before we started recording, and it seems like in general the audiences did not respond that favorably to this movie. And seeing as how the action I think is good, and I think that when it happens, it's really entertaining. But seeing as though it's carried a lot by the subterfuge and the dialogue between these characters, and there are a lot of like you said moments where they kind of take you out, and you're kind of asking, wait a second, what is all this supernatural stuff? Is it actually happening? And things like that. I can see how somebody might be taken out of the film, but for me, yeah, I thought the film was great, and I think that objectively it is a well made and well executed movie.
I'm pretty sure there was only one page of dialogue.
That is not true at all. You exaggerating. So yeah, but is there anything else that you wanted to say about the movie before we get on to the next topic?
No, I'm okay.
So yeah, so you guys want to hear us talk about this and other things, you can check us out on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/C3Films. It'd be great to see you guys over there. You can also see any of our backlog of things that we recorded on our YouTube channel here. But what did you guys think about the Northman? Did you guys enjoy it? Did you enjoy the acting? Did you enjoy the story? Did you enjoy the overall like technical aspect of how the movie was made? Or did you feel like it was boring, or maybe it wasn't for you? Did you feel like the mythology just wasn't interesting? Whatever you thought about it, comment below. Let us know. And while you're down there, if you give us a like, share, subscribe. Even if you don't, though, I have been Chris, and this has been
Cheryl, and we'll see you all next